Welcome, welcome, welcome everyone to our exploration series. So let's take a minute. I'm gonna say good. I'm gonna say good evening, and I hope you had a wonderful week. But let's do a little housekeeping. We are. I want to make it known that the reason we're doing these casts is we need is to start to have the conversation. We want to take these subjects that are very serious and very real, and we want to have a conversation because some of these things need to change, and the only way we can change is if we can talk about it. Today's subject is womanhood. There are a lot of different definitions, there are a lot of different nuances when it comes to it. We need to make sure that we're talking to each other and loving on each other, but we also need to make sure we can identify what's wrong with the generations and what's going on with our young ladies. Womanhood is has many perspectives and many ways that they achieve it, and we're going to talk about some of that. We're also going to talk about the blessings, the curses, the good, the bad, the drama that come along with it. And I have a wonderful, wonderful panel that is here and waiting to engage in conversation. So I have Miss Ingrid, Miss Kayla, Miss Keisha, Miss Amanda, and Miss Melody. All of them are very strong women in their own right. We have different levels of education, different levels of entrepreneurship. We have just very different people that all are coming together to have a very real conversation. So thank you, ladies, for joining me. Yay! So you guys know the routine. I'm going to ask the first question in just a moment, and when we did, I'm going to go and I'm going to start calling. We're going to get some order in this place. So this first question, we're going to just go ahead and start off with Miss Keisha. We're going to get her to start off this first one, and then we're going to just go around. The first question is a very real basis of this whole conversation. To you, in your perspective, what is womanhood? What is the definition of womanhood? Okay. Take your mute off. Okay.
There it is. All right. How y'all doing? Sorry about that. Okay. My definition of womanhood is it's many things. It's being strong, it's being vulnerable, it's being almost like a mother, a sister, it's being a leaning ear, it's being that stronghold. It's also being that fighting force for kids, for sisters, for families. Uh, that's what I believe womanhood is.
Okay. Melody.
I would say all of that. I would like to add, to me, womanhood involves creation, bringing forth life. And that doesn't necessarily mean having children, but I believe that all women are capable of some form of creativity and creation. And then the other thing that I would say that about womanhood is intuition. We are a lot more intuitive than we like to admit sometimes, I think.
Ingrid.
Hey, so I will coattail off everything that everyone so far has said, but I also will add that we are nurturers, just by default. We're very resilient. Womanhood to me is resilient, just being able to bounce back from so much. And then I think that we are the biggest displayers of love. I don't think any other being can love more than us except for God. I think we're the closest in that as far as giving and receiving if we know how to receive it correctly. So that's what I would say.
Okay. Kayla. Kayla.
So womanhood for me is where I have to I like to answer questions with when I'm asking for a definition with giving the what I would say Webster's definition, which means that womanhood definitively means the state or condition of being a woman, but also that means being a nurturer. That means having strength and integrity in everything that you do, having your sister's back, being your sister's keeper. That's the definition of womanhood for me.
Miss Amanda?
So I do agree with all the ladies and what they have said, but I also think that womanhood is in the eye of the beholder, because what I feel defines my womanhood and how I want to approach my womanhood may not be what another woman views as the definition of her womanhood and defines her. So I always say that it is in the eye of the woman's beholder.
Okay, I love it. So, with that being said, in your life, who taught you? How did you learn what womanhood was? How did you embody it? Who modeled it for you in your life? So we're gonna start with Miss Melody.
Who has modeled womanhood? That's a very interesting question, because what I used to think was womanhood was having babies, being a good wife, being the matriarch of the family. And for me, that was my grandmother and my mother. And just seeing what it takes to walk gracefully through this world as a woman, accept, my flaws, and refuse to accept less than what I deserve from the world, and from the people in my life. That would come from my mom and my grandmother growing up. But as an adult, I have seen womanhood in so many different types of people. I would say every woman I meet and talk to has exhibited to me what womanhood can be and is.
Okay. Miss Ingrid?
I was nodding my head at what Melody was saying, because that's exactly what I would say. I can find parts or definitions or, from every woman I come in contact with, I can find something that embodies, whether it's something I agree with or not. Just, as Miss Amanda said, it's in the eye of the beholder. And so, for me, I can go back to my childhood where I didn't understand what womanhood was. But if I think about it now, I can remember Miss Louise, she had the corner store. So she was an entrepreneur. And then I can think of, my grandmother who would ride me out on buses all the way across town. This was the 80s, to clean white people's houses, but she made sure we had everything that we needed with that little money. And it instilled in me that I would never clean a white person's house, because she would clean these mansions, and I remember counting $25 that they paid her. And I was like, yeah, that's something I will never do. And then to, growing up in my 20s and just didn't know anything about life, but I came across Miss Cynthia, who taught me how to put on makeup and make sure my face is clean. And so it's just, you go through everything. And then, I remember Miss Julie, who was on drugs and used to sell her body, but guess what? She made sure her children had what they needed. And, people talked about her, but, she made sure her children went to school and she was home by in the morning. And so it was just, I can just find all these women and find a piece of them and just say, each of these women will teach me something, whether it's something I'm going to use in my life or not. All of them embody something that I can say, has been implanted in me, and that it is just a part of me being a woman. So yeah, every woman I come in contact with, I can find something.
Okay. All right. Kayla? Your thoughts?
Can you repeat the question for me?
Who modeled womanhood for you? Where did you learn it? What are your earliest memories of it?
My earliest memories of womanhood has to be my mom and my grandma. They modeled definite womanhood where my fashion sense comes from, or keeping myself together, as Miss Ingrid said. And definitely they instilled in me the strength of pursuing dreams and pursuing everything that life has for you. That's definitely what they did, because like Miss Ingrid said, my grandma cleaned houses for those rich white people, and she had a 10th grade education, but she made sure that all of her children graduated high school if they didn't go on to get 4-year degrees. And then the grandchildren ended up getting 4-year degrees, and now me, I'm getting a graduate degree. So each generation of women has gotten progressively better. But one thing that I sat here and realized is that for the African American community, which is very important, is that I'm going to be a 4th generation homeowner, and that's saying something, because my great grandma, my grandma, my mom, and now me and my cousin, we're both gonna. Well, my cousin just bought a house, so her second house actually. So, and then me, they're passing the torch to me, so now it's time for me to buy a house. So that's something that they instilled in me, is going after your dreams, going after everything that you ever dreamed of. The sky is the limit, is what they told me. And they always told me, you have no choice, you have to do better than this, because there is something better for you. You cannot stay stagnant in this place. You have to go forth and be who you are meant to be, and engage in your destiny and your purpose.
Okay, Miss Amanda.
So I was fortunate and blessed to not only be raised by my mother and my grandmother, but my 2 great grandmothers. One of my great grandmothers lived until I was almost 15, and the other one lived until the month that I turned 21. So not only did I have my mother, who was born in 59, but then I had my grandmother, who was born in 36, and my 2 great grandmothers, who were born in 15 and 18. So I have a range of views and a range of influences. From one of my great grandmothers, she sat and taught me how to can, how to plant a vegetable garden, how to do all of that. And people would have thought that she was like a stay-at-home wife, but she wasn't. She worked in DC for the Department of Veteran Affairs and the finance department, which was almost unheard of for a Black woman in her time frame. She was born in 1918. So you imagine she was working, 40s, 50s, and that was almost unheard of. And then my other great grandmother used to wear mini skirts and go and take us down to the track and bet on horses. But she always took care of her family. She was the first Black woman in Baltimore City to have a barber's chair in an actual salon, in a barber salon. So I come from women who, they verbally told me things, but they also showed me. I went with them. My grandmother, I used to catch the train in the summertime with her down to where her job was, because across from her job was the camp that I went to, and that was an acting camp. And so they always encouraged me to pursue, their definition of, there were so many different types of women. My great grandmother, who taught me how to can and worked for the Department of Veterans Affairs, she was very quiet. You rarely heard her raise her voice, never heard her. I don't think I ever heard her cuss. Then I had my other great grandmother, the one at the track. So we already know what she was saying out of her mouth, right? And then, I had my mother's mother, who, she was kind of a combination. If you made her cuss you out, you knew you did something wrong. But for the most part, she was pretty even. And then we have my mama, Bonita.
Leave Miss Bonita alone.
And I closely mimic my mother in my temperament. Benita will light you up, but she's a social worker and she loves you and she's nurturing. She's that womanhood. That's that nurturing part. She will take care of you. She makes sure you have what you need. And so I pulled something from everyone. I also was influenced by my grandmother's cousin Annie. And she was just very out there. Like when she passed away, I got all of her A jewelry and stuff because Annie and Amanda was the only A name. So I got all of her stuff. So, you know, so she was just very flashy, anything that was shiny. And I definitely picked that up. Anything leopard print. If I took y'all in my closet now, leopard print, just leopard print. And so I picked up different types of womanhood from them. But one thing that I always, no matter who it was, the one thing was that you never left the house not put together. That was across the board. Not one of them. I cannot remember. My mother will put on a full face of makeup to go to Food Lion. Just a whole full face. Now, I can't say that I'm in that league because I'm not putting on a full face of nothing for no one. I didn't even want to wear all that makeup to my wedding. I was mad. So, but that I don't let people see me really unkept. I was with my husband for a while before he even saw what I looked like in the morning. Y'all, what was that? It was a show where the girl got up in the morning early, brushed her teeth and all. That poor man, when he finally saw me in the morning, like what I really looked like, he was probably like, oh. Oh, so, you know, I pulled so many different parts. Like I can go, I'm getting ready to start my garden now. I know how to can, I can make things from scratch. My other great grandmother sewed and, you know, that was her contribution. She, you know, she taught me how to sew, how to take care. I can literally take care of my family. If there's a zombie apocalypse, we're gonna make it. And it's from pulling from different women that influenced me. And I also had some women in my life who taught me what not to do, you know, and their influence was to show me how not to do it, you know, and to not do those things. So all of those influences from early on influenced my life and my definition of womanhood.
Okay, Miss Keisha.
I agree with all the ladies. When I was younger, I was raised pretty much around all boys because that's what most of my aunts and them had were boys. So when I was younger, I was pretty much a tomboy. So most of the people that I modeled my womanhood behind were my older girl cousins that were at least 10 to 15 years older than me. Also, like my mom, my grandmom, my aunts. It was a lot of them that I had modeled myself behind. Also, as growing up, I had to look at myself and model myself behind myself on the simple strength that what they or the way they were raised is not the same as the way I'm being raised right now. So some of the things and some of their cultural experiences are not the same as what I have got, you know, coming up. So I take theirs in hand, and also I take what I have learned growing up every day in hand as well. So that's what I believe in my womanhood. Excuse me.
Okay, awesome. So it's keeping along the same track that we're currently on. The next question: What are the young ladies? I'm trying to keep it instead of saying girls. What are the young ladies these days? What are the younger females? What are they learning about womanhood? Do you see them getting? Do you see it in the younger ladies? Do you see the things that we saw being displayed to them? Are they being modeled what womanhood really is? But we're gonna start with Miss Ingrid.
I mean, they're getting their definition of what womanhood is, just like we did. They're just getting it in a different aspect. You know, they have social media, they have, you know, whatever comes on television. They have, you know, I mean, It's so weird because I think back when we were kids, we had TV, but you went outside, you played, you wasn't in the house, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. I was talking to my husband about this, the pandemic. And I was like, God is so amazing in how things occur, because we probably would not have been as prepared, because we wouldn't have been able to be in a house and learn on a computer, and because there was no computer, there was the Pac-Man game, or that was as far as we got. So yeah, they're still learning womanhood. They're just learning it in a different way now. How they take that, or how it's used in their life, or how it is restructured or retaught to them, that's what depends on us. That's what depends on their community. That's what depends on the women in their life, because everything on social media isn't good. Everything that comes across TV to me is not good examples of womanhood. Is womanhood in itself, because if there's a woman displaying it, then to me that's defining womanhood, but it's not necessarily defining how someone wants that to relate in their life. So I'm not a fan of what is it, all the housewife shows. To me, that's just the worst displays of womanhood to me, because that's really not how real women act. But if you have a child that's sitting watching that constantly, their mindset is, oh, get rich, screw somebody, mess over your friends, and then get back and hang out the next day. We don't really do that. That's not really how most real women function. But if that's what you're constantly seeing, then you should begin to strive for that. Just as the young lady was saying, I'm sorry, I forgot, because it says KR Newbill. What's her name? Kelly? Kayla, I'm sorry. Just as Kayla was saying, her model was when her mom and grandmother and them was telling her something, she was striving for that. So if you constantly see this same thing over and over again, guess what? You're going to strive for that. But in the end, how is that going to work out for you? I started laughing. I was talking to a lady about the Jerry Springer show. I didn't even know it still come on. Like, it's been on like 1,000 years. But not Jerry Springer, the one where they do the babies. And I'm like, so Maury, so how are they going to feel when you're 25 and they're still showing this show on YouTube, and your mom was the one that had 15 baby daddies? Like, it's just like, are we thinking about the child in the future? So it's just certain things, like, I feel like they're getting exposed to that we were not exposed to. Will it make them less or more of women? Well, we can't determine that, because people change, they grow, they evolve. But I just think that, yeah, they're getting womanhood, but they're just getting it in a different aspect. And so we just got to challenge that as a community, of how to filter it, how to direct them into a way where we can kind of teach them our experiences and teach them truth, so that they can have a good outcome, because that's what we want for everyone, for their outcome to be what looks good for them, what's best for them.
Melody.
So my immediate thought when you asked this question was that we are moving towards a more gender fluid population situation. I think that the young ladies who identify as women, I mean, like, we didn't even have to say that as a kid, right? Like, people who identify as women, this concept is probably archaic to them. The idea of womanhood probably doesn't have the same, I would imagine, does not and will not have the same meaning as it does for us. If you think about how we're all talking about the women who influenced us, our elders, basically. The elders who influenced us were this, at that time, that model of what a woman should be, right? You work, you take care of your kids, or you stay at home and you take care of your kids, you take care of your husband, you get married, you need to know home ec. I mean, how many of these kids are still taking home ec? I doubt it, and these are your roles as a woman. And so I think as we're moving towards, these kids are moving towards a more gender fluid concept, I would like to see where, or if womanhood is still a concept. I think feminism is a dying concept for these kids. I don't think that they have the same struggles, just as civil rights was a dying, concept for us growing up. Um, it was still around, we knew it was there, but we weren't having to deal with the issues related to civil rights. I mean, it's coming back with the whole cop thing, but I digress. But for these kids, the concept of a woman's place at home, a woman's place in the workforce, a woman's place in society, a woman's place in, math, science, all of these things are kind of non-existent for them. They don't have to worry about these being real in your face issues. Obviously, women still make 70 cents on the dollar for what a man makes, but those are not forefront fights and issues for them as they were for us. So on one hand, I think the concept of womanhood as we knew it is not going to exist anymore after us. But I would be very interested to see what it looks like 20, 30 years from now, when these kids grow up and start having kids.
Amanda?
So I'm always the one that comes with the convoluted answer, right? So for me, watching and knowing things weren't that different back in the day. They were just covered up. And we don't cover up things that are considered in bad form or you being a bad woman. There are plenty of, before DNA tests existed, there were plenty of men claiming children that didn't belong to them because they didn't know, or maybe they did know. I know a woman who was born in the 40s, and she was living in a house with her husband, sleeping with the man across the street, sleeping with another man down the street, and sleeping with a man across town, right? And getting pregnant and telling all the men that weren't her husband that, she needed to have an abortion and all of that. And because this was after Roe versus Wade. And getting money from all of these men because they also had wives. And so they weren't trying to get caught up in that matrix. And when this was happening, this was like, mid, late 70s into the early 80s. So this isn't, this things that are happening now are not new things. We didn't just start doing these things. It's that there were a lot of shotgun weddings and, send them away to have the baby and then come back. And where you been, girl? Oh, I had to go to, I was sick. I had, polio, whatever they were claiming back in the day. So when people say, oh, society has gone down, no, society just didn't, it's not taboo anymore. You don't hide it anymore. So when you ask, what are we showing these young girls? We kind of showing them what's already been happening. Just, it's more out there now. I remember when I was in high school, we had girls that got pregnant, but it was kind of like, dang, you out here getting caught, huh? Okay. But when my mom was in high school, you would be banished, but now generations, because I'm old enough to have I'm old enough to have a teenager. So, I have a 7-year-old, but I could have a teenager, and that teenager, these kids out here, I got little cousins and stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, she on her third, kid or something like that. So it's just that it's not taboo anymore. And I also go back when I have these conversations, while I don't think that teenagers are as mature as they were back in the day, I think it's important to remember that there were girls that got married right out of high school. There were girls that got married without finishing high school, and people turned out fine. So it's that we have more choices now. Back when that was happening, there weren't a lot of choices. You got married, your goal was to be a wife, and procreate. And now you can go to college and you can do all of that. You can do all of that. But I think it's also important to remember that everybody's definition of womanhood is different. So it might be that there's a young girl who wants to be a mother. That's what she wants to do. My mom, she went on to be a social worker and she went pre-med for a little while, but my mom always wanted to get married and have kids. That was the thing that she wanted to do. And so, but she came up at a time when she had choices. She went to college. She went pre-med for a little while. She dropped out and she got married, which is what she wanted to do. And then a couple of years later, I appeared. But she had that choice. And she chose to get married and have children because that's what she wanted. So when we say, what are we teaching these young girls? And, what are we teaching young ladies that are coming up now? My goal with my daughter, like I said, I have a 7-year-old and she's starting to move into that awareness time frame. And the thing that I teach her is just be what you want to be. Do what you want to do. She's the type of girly girl that says, Mommy, paint my toenails red, and then goes out there and builds with Legos. It literally happened today. So I think that we're influencing these girls. Like Melody said, it's more gender fluid now. We're not telling them you must play with Barbies. She got a whole Barbie dream house. That expensive, huge, horribly terrible to put together Barbie dream house that she plays with like twice a month. But you can find her with Legos and all of that every single solitary day. She got about 3,000 Legos. So, I think that we're just teaching them to be whatever they want to be, that their gender, and that could be the new definition of womanhood, is that your gender doesn't define what you are, what you do, I guess is the answer. I'm gonna stop talking now because I talk a lot.
Okay, Kayla, come on.
What we are teaching our young girls today, like the young ladies have said today, we're teaching there's a different definition when it comes to each individual household, each individual person, and each individual mechanism when it comes to what is womanhood. So I've seen, I'm a social worker, so I've seen where my one client, she made it, she was 20 years old and her mom was teaching her how to use the system for what you need it for now, and then when you make it, you just let it go. And that's what she did. She used the system for what she needed it for, and then she just stopped answering my calls. I'm okay with that because now you have a job. Now you're self-sufficient. Now you can take care of your baby girl, and your mom is there to support you in that. Her mom was there to show her what a woman is supposed to do with a newborn. So her mom was like, okay, you just had this baby. Okay, you don't have a job right now, so let's get you some help. Let's apply for the Medicaid and the cash assistance and the anything that is available to you, the WIC and the vouchers and all of that, and use it until you can afford to get these things on your own. And then when you are successful, when you are stable, you just let it go. And that's what she did. So it was a marked contrast, because I didn't see her for months. It was a marked contrast. This little girl literally grew up in a couple of months, and I could see her growing, her growth in those couple of months. I seen her when she first had a baby. Homegirl was maybe 100 pounds. I seen her a couple months after that. The baby is of course grown. She's like 6-7 months at this point. And she's gained maybe 30 pounds. But that's what is happening. And the weight didn't look bad on her, but it was the growth. I saw a maturity in her. I saw a hustle in her. I saw all of these great things and these great improvements. And so it's what we are teaching young. It's a difference, because we are teaching young girls also how to succeed, but we're also teaching them that resources are available for them when they need it, and when you don't need it, you just kind of let it go. And so from a social worker's perspective, that's where I'm coming from. But from a familial perspective, it's like some girls are choosing womanhood to be the opposite of what they've seen, because they grew up in such a toxic household. So they're like, I don't want to be that I don't want to be that I don't want to be that yelling, angry, bitter woman that my mom or my grandma was, because she raised me and she was a product of her circumstances. I want to be better than the product of my circumstances. I want to go on and be much more. And so there's that dynamic. And then there's also where the dynamic that most of us are coming from, where we want to be like our mothers and our grandmothers, the ones who like, I'm sorry, Amanda said, my mom is the one who will put on a full face and put on all 5 carats of her rings to go to Walmart. And I said, Mom, you can't go to Walmart with 5 carats on your finger. And so she was like, well, can I put on 1 carat? Yes, you may. But it's you have on a sweatsuit. You don't need to wear your whole set. But my mom is so proud, because she's like, I've been married. My mom's been married for almost 30 years. I've been married for almost 30 years. I earned these rings. That's how my mom that's how she does. So it's crazy to see that. And so womanhood is where my mom, like I said, my mom puts on a full face and she never leaves the house looking crazy. And so I told her that I was getting on this panel discussion. She said, well, you need to get it together. So I had to, and you know what I did? I went in her bathroom. I moved out a couple of months ago. I went in her bathroom and played in her makeup. Boom, this is what you got. So it's just the different dynamics that you see with these young ladies today, because there's such a, it's not a blueprint right now. I am a millennial being raised by baby boomers. I was raised totally different. I was raised as if I was born in the 70s and the 80s. Like, what is privacy? What is that? It's so different. So it's like there was a blueprint that you had to raise kids by, or raise young ladies by, from my perspective. But now there's not a blueprint. There's so many different blueprints. There's the gentle parenting. There's the I will snatch you where you act up parenting. There's the oh no, we do timeouts parenting. There's the I don't believe in timeouts. I believe in tearing you up parenting. And so it's no longer a stringent blueprint, whereas there is a marked difference between each individual person, and they could come out of the same household. So that's my perspective. So to sum it all up, there's not a blueprint for the young ladies that we're raising up today. We just have to be honest with them, and we have to show them that what womanhood is based on our perspective, and then let them grow into their own woman.
Okay, so with all this being said, do you feel like this next generation is able to embrace womanhood and the self-confidence that it incurs within it? Do we feel like our girls' direction, and I don't mean direction is, oh, you do this, like we said before, but do you feel like they have enough confidence to yourself? They have enough instruction and enough examples to say, okay, I can function. I can function. Are they functioning in a healthy environment? Whether they're doing, like she said, whether you're doing the college, the 4-year degree, or whether you just managing to graduate high school, can they function as they need to survive this world in this era? If push comes to shove, are they being given the tools to be able to live their life, or are they just holding on by the edge of the tailpipe and figuring out where they fit in?
If we don't all say yes, we are preparing them, then we're all saying that we're terrible. We're terrible elders, because
but like you all
Not
said,
necessarily
there's
true.
so
Not
many
necessarily true, because
different.
it also goes in nature and nurture as well. You got to think about it. Some people, like she said, you have nature and nurture. Some people get in that realm and play victimized. Okay, my parents were addicted to drugs, and they say they haven't seen anything past that life, and they go down the same road. You have the other ones who say, okay, yes, my parents was this, and I want to be exactly the opposite. Like just like Kayla has stated earlier, you had the negativity, you were backbiting, you were growling. I don't want to be like that. I want to be open to my child. I want to let them know that I love them and I will nurture them in a way that they can come to me at any time. So it also goes into that aspect. Nowadays, you have a lot of single parents. It's not the same as back in the day where daddy stayed home. So it's like you have mama that works all day long and they continue on and they doing for themselves. So some of them have been a lot more self-involved, a lot more capable to do things because they had to do them. You know what I'm saying? They had to stay home and maybe do their homework or look after their little brothers or or sisters or cook dinner and stuff like that because mom had to work, just to make sure that they kept a roof over their head and could eat. So I think it definitely when I look at my two daughters, one's 19, the other one's just turned 17, and they are go-getters. One is a very big empath. She wants to be in psychology. She works with at-risk LGBT kids, and this is a 17-year-old. You have the other one that wants to go into criminal justice. Both went through school, both still keep themselves. And they both come. They're open. They know that if I need anything, if I can't talk to mom, guess what? I can talk to mommy number two. It's okay. That I can go and express how I feel, and they'll listen, and they can give me a non-biased opinion on, what, this is what I think. I think this is an option for you. You tell me what you think about it.
But the question is, are they being prepared?
Some of them are and some of them aren't.
But
Right.
some of us were and some of us weren't as well. That's why I know I keep going back to saying that it's the same old, but it's the same old, same old. Some of us were prepared, some of us weren't. And I actually vacillate on this because on one hand, I think that they're being prepared more because these days kids can be who they are.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to hide who you are as much. You don't have to be embarrassed because you're a little girl that likes Legos and not dolls. You don't have to be embarrassed because you're a little boy who likes boys instead of girls. You don't have to worry as much because you're a little boy who feels like you were born in the wrong body. Because of the way that times have changed, we are able to allow these kids to be who they are. They're not hiding from themselves. Like my generation, I was born in 81, I'll be 40 this year. And my generation, you had to fit that status quo. You had to be that girly girl or else you got teased and you got called names. You had to be, you had to like certain things. You had to look certain way. I've always had a very definitive style where I preferred clothes that are more classic and, retro and all of that. I got teased for wearing it and I ain't care because you can run up on me if you want to and we could do this. But
is it different now though? Like I hear everything you're saying, but isn't that the same thing that's going on? Like that hasn't changed.
Yeah, that was actually my point. It's the same. It's the same in that they face the same issues, but because they are not forced to be or society isn't as harsh on differences as it was when I was growing up, I think that them being more they have more self-esteem than say my generation did because they're more free to be who they are. But on the other hand, my generation went through some rough stuff. I grew up in Baltimore. So yeah. So there was some rough stuff. I saw some rough stuff. So by the time I hit adulthood where I had to do stuff, it was like, all right, get it done. It is what it is. And so I do sometimes worry with my daughter kind of having the Cosby Show growing up that she don't know what it's like to have the lights cut off. She doesn't know what it's like. She fall out because she has to wait until the 15th to get her Minecraft money. She's like, I really gotta wait till the 15th. There's nothing I can do to get it early. Man, listen, I didn't even know what allowance was when I was your age. If you don't go on somewhere and wait till the 15th and get out of here. So it's kind of like, you know, and she has that Cosby Show upbringing. My husband and I were married for 5 years before she was even conceived. We're still together. He's in the room right now, probably laughing at me because he thinks it's funny when I get on lives. And so she has she hasn't had a lot of adversity. And on one hand, I'm happy because by the time I was 7, I had seen a lot by 7. So on one hand, I'm happy because she's been free to be a child and all of that. But then I'm also like, dang, no, am I like raising a snowflake though? Like, is she gonna get out there and be like, I can't handle this?
But okay, I'm sorry, I don't want to talk over you.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
That's my point. So I'm with you. I feel the same way that you do about the vacillating back and forth. Sorry, I get really excited. But I think that this particular question goes back through all of the previous lives that we've had, because, you know, when we were growing up, we had elders, especially as females. Now, again, Mr. Ken is not on here, but he, you know, has a very different view of how his elders interacted with him. And I had an epiphany last week where I was like, oh, shoot, that's because he's a man.
She talking about Ken, Michelle.
Yeah.
Oh Lord.
Because what he defines as like, men just don't talk like women do. They don't like communicate. So I know for me, I had lots of women, you know, in my life, surrogate moms and aunties, you know, that I later found out were actually third cousins removed somehow. But, you know, all of this growing up, I had all of these women feeding me like, you know, this is how to be a woman. And, you know, stand up straight. I don't care if you're wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt, you need to put your shoulders back, lift your head, you know, walk like you are a woman, you know. And I galump. I just never quite got it. But we had all of that growing up, and now we're us, right? And we're having kids that are finally reaching the age where we might have started to listen to our elders, but the way that we are raising our kid, I want to be very delicate and don't offend people, but let me use my sister. I don't have children. Let me use my sister. She's one of those time out, not tear you up parents. And every time I see her interact with her 2 boys, she's amazing, because I would have smacked them by now. I really would have. The oldest one would have had a couple of butt whoopings when he turned 4, but because that's all I know, right? So on one hand, you're right. Like, we're doing better by these kids in general, but I don't feel like we're preparing them for.
And it's tough, right? It's tough because
we're not
to have a better life than you did. Like, my mom was listen, I'm finna whoop your butt now. Now, if it come back later that I was wrong and you didn't knock this milk over, I owe you maybe, but you know, but you still gonna catch this fade.
Right.
My daughter
Absolutely.
is 7 and she's had maybe 2 spanks now. She remembers them because I will say, Michelle has been on the phone and has heard me say, hey, Wody, what you doing? You want to spank? And you will hear my daughter very quickly say, no, and she'll leave. So I'm kind of like on that middle ground, but it's exactly what you said. It's wonderful that they can be who they are and they not, you know, running up on the playground and worrying about folks fighting and stuff like that. But it's something to be said about that, because that toughened me up. I will never forget. And this is going to tell you what kind of mama I got. I will never forget. I was in the 5th grade and I was a fighter. I will admit that I was a fighter. I have calmed down in my old age, but I was definitely, you run up on me, I'm not going to talk to you for too long. I'm just going to start swinging. We're not going to have too many conversations. And my uncle was a boxer. Like on USA used to have Tuesday night fights, and he was literally a Tuesday night fights boxer. So I know how to fight. And so you wasn't too many people, male or female, that could run up on me back in the day and get me. So these girls banked me. And one girl was pushing me and I turned around to put my stuff down and the other girl was behind me and I didn't know, and she punched me in the face and gave me a black eye. So I go home after the fight and I fought them both, but of course I lost. It was two of them. And I told my mom what happened, and my mama put me in the car, took me up to the girl who punched me in the eyes house. And I thought she was going to be like, your daughter hit my daughter. No, she went out and she knocked on the door and she was like, tell your daughter come out here so my daughter can whoop up her ass. Because she deserves this. It needs to be a fair fight. It wasn't a fair fight because she can't take her. So tell her, come on out here and finish it. And I was like, oh, you crazy, like that glue. But that was the type of mother that I grew up with, because she was like, no, this is going to be a fair fight. She's a Libra. So she's very much, this wasn't a fair fight because your girl couldn't take my daughter, she got her friend to distract her so she could sucker punch her. That's not a fair fight. So now we're going to have a fair fight and we're going to do this the right way. Not let's find a resolution to this situation. And so I try not to be to that extreme, but I have also pulled my daughter aside and said, did you want to go into that room? And like, she plays Minecraft and she has a bunch of friends that she plays Minecraft with. And I have been like, is that where you want to go? Well, no, but okay, then don't go. Then don't go. You don't want to go, don't go. And she'll look at me like, okay. And she'll go about her business. But I do worry, like Melody said, it's like, okay, they have a better life, but some of the stuff that I went through made me tough enough to get through what I went through as an adult. And I worry that I'm not making her tough enough because she's not running into the situations that I ran into. And so, I mean, it is what it is. I'm tough. I mean, her dad's a New Yorker. I'm from Baltimore. So there's an element of that. But I think Melody is very right, where it's like, I don't know.
I just want to I'm sorry. I just want to interject one time. So, Melody, you said something that triggered me. So, point number one, I have a couple of points. Point number one, my cousin, God rest her soul, has told me with the keeping up your appearance. She said, I don't care if your feet hurt in them heels. If you wore them and you don't have flats, you better walk like your feet don't hurt. And you better walk like you have confidence. You better put your shoulders back and walk down this aisle like you have some sense and know who your family is. That is what she said to me. She said, I don't care nothing about your feet hurting. You wore them heels. You should have known what they felt like before you put them on. And so she made me walk in those heels and she dared me to walk like my feet was hurting and like I was a deer. She dared me to do it. So, and that's point number one. So, like, I will never forget that lesson. I don't care if my feet hurting. I don't care if my feet hurting. I will walk like I have some sense. Number two is I have caught some face from people, and I have given some face to other people's children, and I do not have a problem with either one. I told Michelle this story. I was chewing gum in church. If you grew up in church, you know that's a no-no. And this lady, she almost caught a fade from her in front of the whole church. And I had to fix myself real quick. And so so my mom was like, well, I didn't even know that happened. And she was like, because I handled it. And so my mom was like, well, you know that I have her and you got her whenever I'm not around. So there's that. And so with my little cousins and like people that are around me, I tell them I beat other people's children. And so my little cousin, she tried it. It was her first time meeting me, poor baby. She ain't know no better. And so she decided to act up and she fell on the floor in the restaurant in public. No, man, we Black. We don't act like this. So I kindly picked her up and I sat her down and I said, now eat your food. And so she sat there and she ate her food quiet and didn't give nobody no more problems, not even her mama. And her mama was like, she has never done this before. And my other cousin, who's younger than me, she said, we all know that Kayla is crazy and she's not gonna try her no more. And our little girl has never tried me again. So it's like again, it's just a different dynamic. So that I yield. That trick, those y'all triggered me with those memories, and it's just like it's. And my mom taught me that she told me I couldn't fight. She said I would get in trouble if I ever got suspended for fighting. She told me don't fight in school. And she said if you my mom was like, tell the teacher. She was the tell the teacher parent. And my grandma was the whoop they behind grandma. She was like, if you don't, and my cousin was like, if you get in a fight and you lose at school, like you got to deal with me. My cousin who's 10 years older than me told me to fight him. My mama telling me not to fight him, and I gotta live with her. And then my grandma who she don't say nobody from butt whoopings because she can't really walk. So what what is it? So what do? I choose my battles wisely. I said, I can't fight you. You know what I'm saying? And so now that I got older, it's like, so I won't physically fight you, but my mom, you can't step to her verbally in any kind of way and expect her to be meek and mild. So now when people come at me sideways, it's like, are you for real right now? And so my coworker, who was my boss, she became my best friend. She said, I was at work and she said, walk away. She would tell me to walk away. And people would be like, well, what happened? She was like, I just saved you from whatever she was about to say. Because it wasn't appropriate. It wasn't going to be good. Your feelings was going to get hurt. And that's not, and that's just us being women. We have to protect ourselves because that's setting boundaries. You cannot come at me any kind of way because you think I'm meek and mild and because I'm smaller than you or I'm quieter than you. That's not possible. It's a thing called respect. And if I give you respect, I should receive that in return. It's reciprocation. So that's what I had to say.
Okay, Ingrid.
I was just gonna say, I guess I totally kind of like agree with Melanie. I'm kind of like following her path or whatever, but nothing is inclusive. Like we have 6 different stories. So everybody's always going to have something to kind of contradict the person before because our stories are all different. And I think that's what I, admire about, I'm trying to say Michelle, Tamika, about this conversation, because that's what you're going to encounter when you encounter people. Everybody's story is different. No one's story is better than the other because it's just kind of based on where they come from. I could find a piece of myself in everything that everybody has said. So, but for me, going back to, are we really preparing them? I think we're preparing them as best as we can. I have, a 26-year-old daughter, and then I have a 4-year-old daughter. Both of them I birthed. And they're totally different in how they grew up. And so it's like, my 26-year-old daughter, I didn't have to spank her that much because she wasn't a bad child. But I was like, how Amanda said her mama was. I would put it down on you because that's what I came from. But my 4-year-old daughter, now that I'm almost 50 years old, I don't have to do that so much. You know what I'm saying? I do have a conversation with her. I do put her in timeout. I do, say, okay, what's going on? Why do you feel that way? What happened? I listen to her. I'm very present with what she's saying. When she comes to say, my 4-year-old, when she says, Mommy, I need to talk to you. I need to hear what she has to say. One of the things that, I'm very verbal on this when I'm, my whole ministry is to raise up a generation where when I got 50 women in a room, 45 of them have not been molested. That's my whole goal for this next generation. Why did that happen so much as it did in our generation? Because they didn't listen to us. They didn't pay attention to the signs. A lot of times they ignored the signs. So it's always going to be the point of everything is inclusive or nothing is inclusive. It just kind of depends on what your story is, where you came from, what's going on in your life. Yes, we're all striving for a certain thing, but did we all muck it up on the way? Heck yeah. I was driving literally this morning, I was driving from the store. And I was just thanking God. I just went into this worship because my life isn't perfect, but it's so good right now. I have nothing to complain about. And so if I go back 3 years ago, did I have that same worship? Not so much. You know what I mean? So it's like, we're forever evolving. We're forever changing. Every woman in our life has a story. You know what I mean? My mom and I did not get along for years,
But until I learned her story, I began to have more compassion for what she went through, for the decisions that she made. Yeah, sometimes I don't agree with them still today, but I can understand why she did that. So now that I understand why, I have more compassion about it. And believe it or not, our children are going to feel the same way about us. You know, my 26-year-old, we are great. We are good friends. We get along, but we had moments when she was in college where guess what? There was things she didn't agree with. And when we had our little whatever about it, and I had to tell her my truth, then she was like, oh, okay, so that's why you said that. That's why you did that, because that's where we came from. And so I can listen to her. I have this, one of my fondest memories where she was supposed to come home for Christmas. And she and I got into it big time. I don't even remember what it was about. And I was just so angry. And she was like, I'm not even coming home. And it was like, really, at that time, I was just trying to enforce my motherhood. Enforce what I was saying was actually right, but I wasn't listening to her. I wasn't listening to her side of the story. And I just remember going in the kitchen after I hung up the phone and she hung up the phone. And I heard the Holy Spirit so clearly say to me, so do you want to be right as her mother, or do you want to be right as my daughter? And that just hit me so hard. I was like, God, I got to be right as your daughter. So I had to humble myself and do something my mother never did and call my daughter and say, hey, I'm sorry. You know, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have listened to what you had to say. And we went on and she came home. My point is saying that my mother's an amazing woman, but she didn't do everything that I would do for my daughter. And guess what? Her mom didn't do everything for her that she did for me. So it's like, it's always going to be that generational change. It's always going to be that, and especially I look at the situation now, like I'm listening to all your stories. Like I got Amanda's story and Keisha's story when it comes to kids, because I got a 26-year-old and I got a 4-year-old. So I totally kind of understand both dynamics and trying to readjust this thing in this new generation with this 4-year-old. I'm like, girl, what are you talking about? Like she's having whole conversations. Like you don't talk to her like she's a kid. She's a 4-year-old that you will know exactly what she wants, exactly what her need is, and so it's like, I can't handle her back how they did in the old days. That's not going to work. You know what I mean? And so I think one of the things that we have to do is I don't know what people's higher power is. Mine is God, mine is Jesus. I got to go to him and say, hey, I don't know how to do this 4-year-olds in 2021. I need some help with this. Like, it's not about spanking her anymore. It's not about, I need for her to learn the lesson, and I need to make sure she knows it. So I got to hear from God. And he will specifically say, hey, do this. And I'll be like, okay, I got to do this like that. So it's like, every story is going to come with something different because, we can only prepare them as best as we know how. Because what we're doing now at 46, where I am, 56, I'm sure I'm going to be doing something different because I'm sure doing differently than I did when I was 36. So, that's kind of my take on that. I love all of your stories, but all of our stories are different. So it's like, it's always something going to contradict because everybody came from a different place.
So I just want to stop because you need to put this on a card and pass these out. I'm going to take a picture of this when I get off this call, and this is now my Facebook ribbon. I am working towards a future when 50 women can gather in a room and that 45 of them will not have been molested.
That's my life. That's every time I'm ministering, that's how I start. Whatever's in the room, if there's 10 women, 8 of them have been molested. And my goal is to change that. And there is a way to get that change. And it's what we're doing now. But we got to be real and we got to talk about what's going on and what's happened. We got to have conversations with our mothers and our aunts and our grandmothers and say, why did you allow this to happen? What was going on? How did you know? You got to have those conversations, and they hurt and they're hard and they're, but when they're your story and they're your truth, and a lot of times our generation, you still want to keep the peace. But it's not all about keeping the peace sometimes, because you're the one that still has that hurt and that scab, and it needs to be pulled back so that thing can be clean. Because I'm a nurse, so I'm going to use literally. You got to pull that scab back to get all that nastiness, toxicity, all that stuff out of there so that you can live. I can live free now because I dealt with it.
Yeah.
I dealt with it literally to the person who molested me. He passed away. On his dying bed, I told him I forgave him because he changed. He literally changed. But what's going on now, we don't have those conversations. And then we kind of think it's gonna go, it's never gonna go away. My spiritual dad taught me this when I was first really dealing with it. He said molestation is like an oak tree. Like an oak tree, you can plant it in your front yard and it'll still stand 100 years later. But if during the process you take a knife and slide it down that oak tree, 100 years later, that knife will still be there. That's what happened to us when we get molested. Your soul is scarred. Your soul is scarred. And so the only way that that can heal, from my perspective, people have their own perspectives, God had to heal me. And the only way that he could heal me was I had to tell him my truth, how I felt, what this thing did to me. And then he led me step by step of how to get to that healing. And I think so many times when God says, okay, I need you to go to this person and say this, we don't want to cause any rubble with that person. So we don't. And we wonder why we're still broken. I could talk about this freely to my mom, to my husband, to anybody that I come across because I did those steps. That's the only way we're going to get free and get healed from this thing that has been destroying us as women. When I meet women and their lives are jacked up, the root cause was my mama boyfriend molested me. The root cause was my uncle molested me. The root cause was my mama molested me. The root cause was my sister ate me out. The root cause, whatever it is, that's always the root cause. When their life is jacked up and we don't want to talk about it, or when they look like they got the perfect life and we don't want to talk about it. That's my goal. I just told that the other day. Every time I go in the room, that's the first question I ask. And then found out later, 10 people ain't raised their hands because they was ashamed. They're still living with the shame of it. We got to get, that's how only way we're going to me, change the generation.
And I want to agree with you on that. Also, they talk about like someone said back in the day, children were seen and not heard. It was you stay in a child's place. I don't want to hear what you got to say, or it's adult time. I'm gonna need you to go, somewhere else. And many times, during those times, it's right under their noses. And like you said, it wasn't the visual aspect of it wasn't seen because they didn't want to be seen, or they wanted to play blind to the fact of it, so
this brings up
we keep it in the family. I'm sorry.
No.
Yes, keep it in the family. That's the biggest thing. Like what goes on in this house, it stays in this house. And a lot of times the females and moms, grandmas, they knew what was going on. It had happened to them. But they never talked about it because guess what? They survived it. And I think we got to get past just surviving. We got to thrive as women. And that's what's helping. We're survivors. All of us, if it has happened to you, you survive, but are you thriving? Because is that thing still sneaking up on you sometimes and putting you into a depression? Is that thing still sneaking up on you and making you overeat? Is that thing still sneaking up on you and you can't keep a good relationship, a steady relationship, no matter what type of relationship you're trying to have? Is that thing still sneaking up on you? You can't stay stable. You can't get stabilized. It all comes from that root of molestation. It's a horrible, horrible sin that we have to deal with. And this is my only way. Every time somebody invites me to minister, I'm bringing it up because women got to be free. And I don't give a darn about who it hurts because this is my story. I had to live this pain. I had to go through all the residual effects of it that nobody seemed to have an answer for. And until I got to this place of healing, I couldn't even talk about it. It was like, well, why are you bringing that up? Literally, when I got molested, the pastor came, the police were at my house. I told the teacher, I was 8 years old. I told the teacher, the pastor of our church at that time came and said, why would you do that to him? That's what he said. I was 8 years old. So now what am I thinking as an 8-year-old? I did something wrong. So it's like we're trying to raise up a generation where they don't ever have to think something wrong. I remember that was the main thing. I was a little overprotected with my older daughter because I was like, I don't care who it is. If anybody touches your poom poom or your butt or your breast or any type of way that you feel uncomfortable or inappropriate, you need to come to me and tell me, mommy loves you. She will handle it. She will take care of it. And I'm realizing with all the ladies that I talk to or deal with, you know what the main issue is once it's done and they're grown, no one defended them. When I have those sessions with them and I find out no one defended them, no one whooped that man's ass, no one called the police, no one did anything. That's what I think, that's that burden they carry the most. And when it gets to that, that was always my cause. That of all the things you might do to me or my children, they're gonna know that somebody is there to defend them. You have to defend these girls. We have to tell people when they're wrong, because we go through life thinking, oh, that must have been okay, because nothing happened to them. Tisha Campbell, the girl off Martin, was telling her story. She was 3 years old. She was molested by the babysitter. She told her dad, and nothing, her dad didn't do anything. Why? I don't know. But she went through her life. This 50-something-year-old woman now just got a divorce, lost all her stuff. I don't care what anybody says. It attributes back to that. People talk about Whitney Houston and all the stuff she's been through. Dionne Warwick's brother molested him. It all goes back to that. Every time you see somebody living a jacked up life, I'm almost willing to bet 99% of them, it goes back to this molestation. And we just got to get free. So don't get me started with this, because this is my passion. This is where I want to see women free the most at.
But your story segues into the next question. Because we all have mentioned the stories of our stories. How different would life be if we shared our stories with this next generation? Because like Ingrid, what you made a pretty great point. We share our stories with each other. That's the only way we begin to heal. Some of these young girls don't understand what we've been through. Some, for you, it was a deal with a molestation. I grew up as a parent who was a drug addict. I have abandonment issues from West Hale some days. I will drop you out, or once you walk away, I tell you don't come back because I'm done. That stems from a parent who left consistently to chase a drug to get high. You have people who are living with parents who were alcoholics. And it goes back, generational curses, relationships, the toxic part of life. We learn these things and we accept them because we saw it in our life. We all had those relatives that were alcoholics and would fight everybody and cuss, and the family said, no, don't leave auntie such and such alone. We'll get them. And they fixed it and they hid her from everything. And no one said to this child that this is not right. This is not the way you're supposed to live life. So are we sharing our story with this next generation in hopes that they understand that our love is pure, but we don't want you to go through what we done been through. We want you to understand, because to Ingrid's point, I tell my kids all the time, and I'm saying it on a live stream, I will rock orange for you if you touch any one of my children. I have no problem. I have a 380, touch them at your own risk. You will not, somebody touch you, you tell me, because I promise you, I will sit downtown, because you don't deserve that. If you say no, no is no. They come, they make you feel any type of way. You come find your mama. I promise it will be taken care of. But doing this, it gives her confidence to keep moving, gives them confidence to step out, because they know they got a mama, they know they got daddy, they know they got stepmama, they got some aunties that will rock for them. But they also know that even if you could tell somebody they touched me inappropriately. You could tell somebody, they're bullying me. You could tell somebody that I was hurt in a way that was not right. You could tell somebody. And are we creating that? Are we telling them our stories and letting them know, come tell me, baby, mommy got you. I don't care who it is. Like Ingrid said, I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's a relative, a friend, a person in the street. Say something. So are we telling our story to these younger generation, or do we feel like they're too young for it? Or are we trying to protect them from it? What are we doing?
I have, because I'm in a sorority, and for a long time I was the advisor for undergrad girls, and we have girls clubs that are under our sorority. So, and cousins and stuff like that. But the biggest thing that I have shared is the what you touched on, Michelle, with the parent that was a drug addict. My father was a drug addict, and he was in and out, jail, drugs, all of that. And what you said, I'm quick. I don't know how Stan, that's my husband, has lasted for 15 years. He one of them people that hold on and grab on and won't go nowhere. Because I promise you, I've been like, oh, bet. All right, see ya. Because that I'll just I'll just walk away. And I have always been like that. And once we done, don't come back. I've had exes that were decent folks and we just did stupid young people stuff and try to come back. And I'm like, no backpedaling. Sorry. You were dumb. Goodbye. And that's it. And so, I have talked to my younger sorority sisters. There's been some that have had similar backgrounds, and I have talked to them about, you got to let it go. My dad is still living. He hasn't spoken to me since 2015, hasn't checked on his granddaughter since 2015. She was born in 2013. He's still my Facebook friend. Every once in a while, he'll pop on my Facebook status and say something, but he doesn't talk to me because I guess he got to be too much of a parent because he didn't raise me. And when I was older, we reconnected and he was clean. He got clean when I was 17. And so I gave him a second chance, and I guess it was just too much to be the parent of an adult. And he just out of the blue stopped returning my phone calls one day. And it upset me bad because not only that, but I have your grandchild. Like, if you mad at me, be mad at me. I don't know what I did, but be mad at me, but check in on your grandchild. And I was like, what did I do to deserve this? But eventually it had to come that it wasn't me. I didn't deserve, that was him, and it took me being a parent and raising her to understand that that's in him. There's nothing that little girl could do. And she has done some stuff in her 7 years. There's nothing. I got nail polish in my carpet right now that I got to figure out how to get out. But there's nothing that she could do that could ever make me not speak to her. Nothing. And so that's not in me. That's not me as the child. That's the parent. And that's what I have talked to, people who have had difficult parental relationships and stuff like that. It's not you. You need to go on. You need to forgive, and I know it's hard, and I've forgiven him. I just don't mess with him. I just don't. I think when he comments on the Facebook statuses and stuff, I think that's his way of kind of testing the waters to see, okay, is she going to respond? And I don't. But it's not because of a hatred or anything like that. I wish him well. I hope he lives a long life. You're just not going to keep darting in and out of my life. And as a child, I didn't have that option. I didn't have the option to say, you're going to stop darting in and out of my life, and I don't want to deal with you anymore. As an adult, I got every right in the world. And, it took, like I said, me having my daughter and then seeing my husband with my daughter. My husband is a lot of things, crazy as all get out, but he is an amazing father. And he's an amazing father to our daughter, and he has a 16-year-old, and he is an amazing father and has been her entire life. And so seeing that and realizing, my parenting, I make sure that I talk to people about those relationships, because that will wear on you too. That will wear on you hard. And so that's the message that I try to get to people is, don't let that influence your life. Don't let a miserable parent make your life miserable forever.
I wanted to expound on what you said, how you forgave him. They always say you can forgive, and forgiveness is not for them, but it's for yourself, and you'll never forget what happened. And you don't have to. And the thing is, your forgiveness is you being okay and saying, you know what, I forgive them. I don't forget. And it doesn't mean that I have to connect with you. It doesn't mean I have to talk to you. It doesn't mean I have to even, say anything. It's just that, I am able to say I am okay. I'm not even okay, but I forgive what you have done. And that regardless of the fact, or even if I don't, I did it for me, not for you, not for anybody else, but for me, so that I can move on and not be stuck in that same realm for a long period of time.
Melody. Unmute yourself.
Everybody said so much. I'm like, so I mean, the only 2 points that came to me was that you know, you guys already mentioned that this is how you break generational cycles and curses, as we talked about last week, is that you, I, as an elder, need to impart my stories so that, you know, scientifically, like seriously, biologically, children do not have the ability to understand cause, consequence, action, consequence, like, and put that together as something that really affects them until they're 16. So you're going to have to say a lot for a lot of years in order to get that to start to connect. You know what I mean? So, and even then, you know, guys, sorry guys, they're a little slower than us on the uptake. So it's a little longer for them, I bet. But the only way we're going to help the youth of tomorrow, you know, stop the planet from, you know, imploding, is if we start recognizing two things. Someone started to say it and kind of half said it. We are doing the best that we can based on the tools that we are given at the time that the situation occurs. And I mean, I drill all the way down to that one situation. And there are going to be 20 more that are similar. But again, the tools that you have to work in that situation may be different. So as long as we start recognizing that, like you were saying, there's no reason to hold on to our stories, you know, and hold on to that shame. I've said it before, shame is a wasted emotion. It serves no purpose. So until, like, as long as we realize that that's, you know, quit being so hard on ourselves. And as women, I'm guilty of it. I don't care how much self-esteem you have. Someone compliments you and you go, oh, this old thing. Oh, you know, I just threw this on. Oh, you know, we don't know how to accept, you know, positive things that are being, you know, told to us. So that's the first thing. And then the second follows right on it, to recognize that our elders did the best that they could with the situation they were given, or the tools that they were given in the situation at that moment. That's all we can do. And as long as we continue to do our best with what we're given, each generation should collectively break generational cycles, break curses, you know, if you believe in curses, but also elevate the population to a higher level of thinking and being more in tune with our sexuality, spirituality, because we're going to start sharing our stories. And I'm telling you, when I have these conversations with kids, I was a bio major, so I'm a straight place I go to is science. You are not going to understand the concept of cause and effect, action, consequence as it relates to you until you're 16. And it's just going to start there. But I am a true testament. I have seen it work. I was 14. I was with a guy who was 18. I was a virgin. I had no concept of how I even got on the couch at my grandmother's house. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I can remember back then, like 1 second I called him on the phone, the next second I'm naked on the couch. So no concept. But what did I hear? I heard my mother. If you have sex before you graduate out of high school, you can get the hell out of my house. Because if you're grown enough to be out here on these streets, you're grown enough to take care of yourself. I heard that at 14. And he said to me, your mama won't know. And I said, you don't know my mama. For 14 years, this woman has had me believing that everybody I meet is a spy for her. Not recognizing that as a woman, when a girl loses their virginity, their walk is different, is going to be different. You know, they're going to start getting all shy about their body. Like, all this is about to change, right? I had no concept of that. But what stopped me was hearing my mama's voice. If you have sex, not if you get pregnant, because that's what she told my sister, if you get pregnant, if you have sex before you graduate, you can get out of my house. Because if you can be a woman on the streets, then you can be a woman to take care of yourself. I don't raise babies. So like, it literally saved me. I mean, he could have raped me. Thank God he didn't. But when I say to these kids, I'm like, trust me, it makes no sense to you right now. But when you're like 17, 18, everything I'm telling you is going to start making sense. Just hold out that long.
Kayla?
I have 3 points to say. One is be honest. Let's start. We've already started being honest. Let's continue that trend of being honest, as it is appropriate, age-wise with our kids, especially these young ladies. Let's be honest about, like Melody said, our sexuality. Let's be honest about our stories. Let's be honest about the tools that we were given generationally. Let's be honest about the curses that we're trying to break and the curses that we're trying to outgrow. Let's be honest about that. My second point is tell somebody. I follow Google Atkins, Mary's sister, on Instagram, and she posted a video, and she said, I don't care. If you don't tell your mama. If your mama don't believe you, tell your daddy. If your daddy don't believe you, tell your aunties, your uncles, your cousins. Tell somebody until they believe you when something happened. Don't keep quiet, tell. And so like that has stuck with me over the past couple of weeks because it kept coming up on my timeline. So I would have to say tell. Like if you are just now getting to the point of getting over that shame, tell. To the young ladies who are in that age bracket and this is happening to you, tell. Like, tell it. It don't matter how old you are. Tell it. Share your story so that you can be free from this, so that you won't have the guilt. Because I guarantee you, it is not your fault. It ain't your fault. People need to keep their hands to themselves. It ain't your fault. Number 3, forgive. It is completely okay to forgive. I saw in the comments, forgive with boundaries. I completely agree with that. Forgive with boundaries. It doesn't mean forgive and forget. That's dangerous. Forgive and say, I forgive you. I ain't gonna mess with you no more, but I forgive you and I'm going with my life. Like, because that is something that can be planted inside of your heart and inside of your soul, and we pass that unforgiveness down to our children. We can't afford that because this generation is too busy trying to reverse the tragedies that has happened to us over generations. So we have to. It's not a point of, do we have a choice? We honestly, in my opinion, this is just me, we don't have a choice because we're trying to be better. We're trying to do better as parents, as aunties, as social workers, as doctors, as Black women in general. We're trying to do better. So we don't have time to have unforgiveness deep seated in our hearts and our souls and passing something else that's toxic onto our kids. So we have to forgive. Now, how long? Now, your journey to forgiveness is your journey, and you go through the motions. I'm a complete advocate of going through the motions. You can go through the anger, you can go through the crying, you can go through the shame, you can go through the guilt. But at the end of the day, please forgive. And so my 3 points is tell, be honest, and forgive. Those are the things that we need to continue to do on this trend, and we need to continuously to uplift our young ladies and to show them how accepting compliments, as one of the young ladies on the panel has said, accepting compliments, it's okay. Because as a woman, as a Black woman, I compliment random Black men all the time. So it is okay for us to receive that and know that it is not with ulterior motives. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's just genuine. And so what I do with other Black women is I compliment them all the time. I will stop you mid-sentence and look at you dead in your face and say, I like your whole look. And then we can continue our conversation, because sometimes people need to hear that. Sometimes we as women need to hear that, because the weight of the world is sometimes on our shoulders, and we have a lot going on, and we have a lot on our mind. And sometimes we just need to step back, look back, and take a deep breath and say, somebody sees me as a woman and not just as all of the titles that I carry.
Okay, Ms. Ingrid.
Are we on a new question? Because I think I already shared my answer to this one. So.
It's okay. So, you know what? Because you've already answered this one. So let's say for this next statement, I'm gonna switch it up just a little bit. How does our relationship with each other? How does womanhood impact our relationship with each other? Are we communicating woman to woman? Is it like they see on these TV shows, drama to drama? How should women be communicating amongst each other and reaching their hands out to each other? Are we doing that? Are we pushing each other down? Are we holding each other up? How are we treating each other in this day and age as women to women? Start us off, Ms. Keisha.
I think we are becoming more connected. As you've seen within the last few years, the Me Too movement and stuff like that. I do believe that we are starting to be more connected to each other and communicating. Um, I know my circle's not too big. I know I have my sorority sisters and I have my sister and a couple best friends, and we lift each other up. We tell the truth to each other regardless whether we like it or not. We are real with each other, and that's what I think our basis is that we can keep it totally 100 with each other. And yeah, sometimes we might not like what the person say to us, and we might not, and it's okay, because a real friend and a real sister is going to be able to say, look, all right, you're screwing up, and the road that you about to go down is just not cool. So I really do believe we are starting to become more close and um, build each other up and just work towards a more common leadership role.
Okay, Amanda.
I agree with Keisha in that in the last few years, especially, you've seen a lot more outward support and lifting up. I think that does stem from things like the Me Too movement and stuff like that, because, we used to be distrustful. And a lot of that stems from those situations. And so now that we've acknowledged the situations, we're not silent, we're not hiding, it's easier for us to connect and to uplift. We're not in survival mode, we're in thrive mode. And for me specifically, my circle, I have a lot of women who have lifted me up through a lot of stuff. I have general anxiety disorder, and in the Black community, that is mental health and stuff like that. But my circle has always been like, okay, let's talk through this. I know you're anxious right now. Let's figure out what's making you anxious. Let's talk about it. And it hasn't always been roses. I had a best friend who I was best friends with for a long time. And when I got married, I have 3 degrees in English and I was a college professor, but I knew that I wanted to stay home with my daughter. I knew that I would want to do that. I didn't exactly know how that was going to pan out, whether I was just going to quit altogether. Luckily, online education is a thing. And so I switched to teaching online. But I just kind of went in a different direction after I started learning stuff. I wanted to teach online. I wanted to stay home. We decided to homeschool my daughter. She's been homeschooled her whole life, and moved into eating organic and healthy and all of that. And because it didn't align with what she wanted me to do, my best friend of a decade was just very mean and catty, and you went to school all this time, and just didn't support at all. Now, what stemmed out of that is actually how I met Michelle. I own a publishing company. I'm a best-selling author, and all of that. So I was successful in what I decided to veer off and do, but because I didn't stay that prestigious college professor, which is not so prestigious at all, don't believe the hype, but because I didn't stay on that track and, you know, I didn't work outside the home, she belittled me. And that was a tough thing to swallow. And that wasn't, you know, really any generational thing. That was just a lack of support. And it was tough, but, you know, eventually I forgave and I got over it. But, you know, stuff like that is what I hate to see. It doesn't matter if I want to stay home. It doesn't matter if my dream is to be a stay-at-home mom that does not have a job at all. That's not my dream. I need to earn something. But my dream was to be able to homeschool my daughter and to be able to, you know, live my dream of becoming an author. I always wanted to be a teacher, but I more wanted to be an author, and then to help other authors like Michelle and my other authors get their story out. That has been one of the greatest achievements of my life, like right behind my daughter. You know, so I got to follow the path that I wanted to do. And the support from my circle made that possible, because it was some times where I was like, y'all, I might don't make it. I might don't make it.
No choice.
Yeah, but see, I had no choice. But, you know, support it's so key. Like, we need each other. We got the weight of the world on our shoulders just because we Black women. Like that, we start off as the underdog. And there's no way that we're going to make it. I used to tell my students this all the time because I taught at HBCUs on purpose. Like that was, I still do. And I wanted to teach Black students. And I would always tell my Black students, you know, we start off behind the 8 ball, but Black women, we start off low man on the totem pole, like low man. And the only way that we're going to get through it is to work together. You know, the crabs in the barrel, I don't care about that. I don't care about you having more success than me. My time will come. It's your time now. Let's get you where you need to go. And then when you get where you need to go, we'll get me where I need to go. And that we're not taught to do that, though. We're taught to compete and instead of work together. And that is a generational curse that I am watching my generation, because I'm like that weird generation, right? So technically I'm a millennial because I was born in 81, but I'm not a millennial because I don't really have any millennial traits, except for I got married later on in life, and I will walk out of a job and be like, you can keep this job, you're not finna drive me crazy. But other than that, like, I had a whole analog childhood. I didn't get a cell phone until I was a grown adult and could pay for it myself. So I'm I'm in that weird generation where I'm not Gen X, but I'm really not a millennial either. But I'm watching our generation support. I'm watching that age range build up each other and hold up each other. And I love it because that's how I was taught as a child. Family wise, you know, not really outsiders, but family wise. But I think that it should always extend to, you know, to other Black women, and to teach our daughters that it's not competition, it's support. And that's what I'm trying to teach my daughter. Like I said, she's 7, and we're very open, you know, with everything. When she comes and she says, I need to talk to you. Michelle has heard it on the phone. My daughter has come in and said, Mommy, I need to talk to you. Michelle, I got to go. I will talk to you later. This child wants to talk to me, and I'll call you back. So, you know, I'm teaching that to my daughter, my nieces, and everything like that. Y'all support, y'all work together, be stronger together.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't realize I was on mute. Miss Kayla, go ahead.
The most exciting and influential thing that I've seen as a millennial is the growth or the abundance or the mainstreaming of Black women genuinely, wholeheartedly, and unapologetically supporting each other. Now we still have the like you said, the housewives and the basketball wives, where the drama between Black women is very much still marketed, but I choose to see a different narrative. I choose to expose myself to different narratives. So I surround myself with women who are genuine about their support and wholeheartedly give support. And when I say wholeheartedly, it means they don't, even though they have the recommendations, the influence, and the accolades, and also the degrees to be a forerunner, to be in the front, they will support their fellow sister who is the forerunner and help them to become more successful. The biggest one that I can think of right now is Tiffany Haddish, who made it, and she reached back and got the comedians that she thought should have made it along with her, who she thought can out joke even some of the mainstream comedians that we see today. And so that's something that I've seen, is where like you're still humble enough to know that without these people, I wouldn't be where I am today. And so that's how I see Black women, is without these Black women, without the Black women sacrificing, my ancestors sacrificing, I wouldn't be here today. So I have to pay homage to who they are, because if it weren't for them, I wouldn't be here. But I also have to understand that there are Black women who we do not realize are our biggest champions, and they are so far in the background that we don't even notice them. And if I can be transparent for a moment, I did not know how many Black women supported me until I got my college degree. And I was in tears when, again, I'm a church kid, so I was in church. I was in tears when I was minding my business, walking around the offering table, and women, Black women, got into their purses and handed me cards, and these cards weren't empty. And so that's the kind of support that surprises me, that uplifts me, because I didn't know that you guys were watching me. I didn't know that you guys, I mean, it was announced, but I didn't know that you guys cared enough to pour into me in such a way. I read every one of those cards, and I still have them, because it wasn't about the monetary donations. It was about the fact that you supported me and you took time out to write on the card. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. From a Black woman goes a long way to another Black woman. It doesn't matter what generation you're a part of. And so you made it. You succeeded. And you did this. Look at this. Look at this. And they wanted the 8x10 pictures of me in my cap and gown. They were genuinely excited because of a Black woman accomplishing something that in their lifetime was common, but it was still to be celebrated. So that's how they came at me. And it's crazy because I support Black women the same way. I will hype you up in the middle of a parking lot if you are a Black woman. I will be loud, the loudest cheerleader that you will ever see. Like, I walk by my coworkers and I get loud, and they're like, "Kelly, you're so loud." I'm like, "No, you look good today. Look at you looking good today, looking like you woke up this way." And so that's the kind of support that I have seen. And I'm a part of a group called Black Girls in Social Work. And I reached out to them and I needed resources. These are women who are in my field. And I said, "Hey, I'm struggling. Hey, I need some resources." They poured into me. They poured into me with not only their resources, but they poured into me with their encouraging words. The encouraging words went far further than the resources that they poured into me. I can go back and say, "Oh, okay, this lady is this," and I can reach out to her about this and this and this and this. But she also said that I can make it. It's not going to be easy, but it's worth it. I know it's hard, but you can keep going. Don't you dare give up. Don't you dare give in. You can do it. Support for Black women is my passion, and it's my thing because it's needed. Like you said, we're on the pool table, we're behind the 8 ball. So when we actually get to the 8 ball, I'm gonna hype you up. But when we pull that stick back and we let it go, and all the balls go into their respective pockets because we're black women and we're powerful like that, because we're black women and we're powerful like that, then that's what I am here for. Because it's like the smallest things can be history. And so I was hyping up my cousin to my friend. She made history and went to Salem State. She was a cadet in ROTC, and she made history by being the first woman cadet to achieve something in their history. And so I was like, oh, look at my cousin. Look at her. And she's a part of the LGBTQ community. I said, look at her and her wife. They have a wonderful baby. Look at her. She just got promoted. Look at this. Look at all of these things. And my friend was like, yeah, that's really good. And I was like, no, she's Black history. This is Women's History Month. Like, this is my cousin. Like, you don't understand. Like she is my cousin. Like, I know her, and it's like, and I don't do that to just to claim, just to get the status. No, I do that because I'm proud that you're my cousin. I'm proud that we came from the same bloodline, and I'm proud that we came from strong Black women. That's how it is. And so, like, when I see one strong Black woman, even when her head is down, I have to say, lift your head up, sis. Your crown is tilted. We got to get that back together. Walk with your head up high, and walk as if you are the Queen Charlotte, because she was Black. We gotta begin to make it. It's not an exception that we hype Black women up. It should be a mandate, because Black women are powerful. Black women have built this country. Black women have wrote speeches. Black women have pushed men, because what we don't understand is who was really behind the civil rights movement? Black women. They had boarding houses and to risk their lives to put up the civil rights activists who did the marches. They fed these people, they gave them water and provided things for them. So Black women should just hype each other up, and I think it should be much, much more than it is. And I think that we should put some respect on Black women's names at all times.
Okay. Ingrid?
Stop the group, because I don't know. For me, it just depends. Like, I don't throw my pearls before swine, and that's just me, how I feel about it. Like, I in the innate nature of us to just wish somebody well, that I'm gonna do that. Like, that's just, I want the best for everybody. Sometimes people don't want the best for themselves. So I'm just not that one who just gonna keep being the cheerleader for you when you like where you are. So if you like where you are, then I love where you are. And so I might not, be a part of something. I think for me, it goes with, how do we define support in the definition of what everyone is talking about? Absolutely. We rally behind what we support, or what we like, or what we, think is good at the time. But just like Michelle will tell you, I call her today. Okay, I got to know the purpose behind this. I get asked to be in panels all the time. I get asked to speak all the time, but I don't always do it, because what is the purpose? What are we doing? Are we just having a conversation? Are y'all just trying to get together? And then if you say no, then what's the first thing a Black woman says? Well, she wasn't supportive. Well, not necessarily. That's just not my lane. That's not what I want to do. So for me, it's just going to depend on what it is I'm supporting, and what it is that, to give a rah-rah, a cheer, I could do that all day. But an authentic saying I'm going to get behind something because they're Black, or because they're a woman, I'm just not going to do it. Like, it has to be a purpose behind it. It has to be, I have to understand what this is. Is it your heart? Sometimes, and I could say this, sometimes it might not always be my lane, but if I see your heart is really into this thing and it's going to turn out good for someone, it's helping someone else,
then I could still be supported behind it. But sometimes if it's just something that I feel like you're just doing just to be doing, or it doesn't resonate with me or my household or what we support, then I'm just not going to support it. I can wish you well. I can rah-rah behind it. But as far as give my actual support where I can actually maybe financially or physically or speak on it or whatever, because even my words to me are valuable. So if I'm going to give you my word and my time, then I got to support what you're doing. I got to know what you're doing. I got to know where it's going, and I got to know, is it actually benefiting people, because or benefiting your cause, because I don't have time to waste. As I get older, I understand my most valuable asset is my time, and I don't care who you are. I love Michelle Obama, but if I feel like she called me and say, I'm doing this thing here, and I'm like, that's great, but that's not what I'm doing right now. I'm not, that's not where I am. So I can't give that time to that. So it's just, for me, it just depends what it is and how I give my support. What am I supporting, and what is the purpose behind it? And I think you were asking, do we do that? Absolutely. As every woman that has spoken, they have a reason why they support. So absolutely, I think we do that. Sometimes do we do it to a fault? I think that too. You know what I mean? I just, for me, it just define how we're going to define support, because that's kind of where I am with giving my support. It's going to be based on what it is. What am I supporting?
Okay, Mel.
I actually don't have a lot to say on this one. I think it's all been said. I know I'm doing what I can. And each of us have to contribute the best that we can, to making sure that, again, we elevate the spirituality and sexuality of mankind, or womankind. I think, yeah, that's it.
Okay. Whew, this has been an extraordinary discussion. I love it, ladies. I love it. I hope we've touched on some things to help some people in their life and give them something to really think about and to go back to their families. Because there's a few overall discussion points that we've said. Talk to somebody, share your story, let your journey be authentic. It doesn't have to be everyone. I think this discussion came a circle that I didn't expect in some ways, but I'm glad you all were on here. I'm glad we were able to have this great discussion. I think for all those who are watching or who will watch, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to inbox me, and we'll go ahead and talk about things. Next week, we're going to have another exploration. It's going to be womanhood again. We're going to have another panel, because this is a very real discussion and we need to talk about it, because we have young ladies that need to know from their elders what's going on. So I want to get as much information, especially since we're celebrating Women's History Month. So with that being said, I thank you, ladies, for being a part of this. I thank you for being on this journey with me. I hope you all have a great, grand, and awesome week. And to those watching, good night. Thanks. Whew. Okay.